So let's see how this pans out and why the Carolina script would be not more interesting, but uniquely interesting. So for instance, just by looking at this is not an official analysis, just by looking at these signs, we can see that certain signs look very much like the signs that we have in our own alphabet. We can recognize them immediately, and then we see in the top, in the middle part here, that they don't seem to correspond to the sounds that we think they have or should have. This is of course debatable because the H and the E could be, and the O and the WO is simply a glide that is added, so that would be fine too, and the P and the D that may actually not be that far apart. But for some it is more obvious. The W may be a reinterpreted M, but there seems to be some kind of variation going on. Well, on the bottom part, it seems to be straight off, one goes towards the other. And there's a plus sign there, and that is simply a mistake. So that should be an equal sign there. So we can see here that there is some borrowing of the shape and not necessarily of the sound, and certainly reinterpretation of the sound of the particular sign. Is this common? Well, yes and no. So here we go. This is Cherokee. Perhaps you remember or recognize it from the previous slide. And if we look here, we see all these alphabetic signs coming up suddenly in the more typographical, useful script that developed a few years after it was developed for printing purposes. And that is not entirely fair, because this was not necessarily how it was originally perceived. This has a lot to do with the printing press. So things that looked like letters were quickly interpreted as known letters, which, you know, if you're interested in iconography, is interesting again. But it also means that we have a lot of signs that were borrowed for whatever reason we now can give this. Is the reason that we actually needed signs? Well, yes, we wanted signs for the printing press. So we borrowed those signs, and most of those do not seem to have the corresponding sound. This is not unique for the Carolina script at all. I would say the opposite. The Carolina script would have more that actually correspond. But in Cherokee, you see that there is very little correspondence.